Hey everybody. So when I moved out to LA, the first thing that I did was try to find an apartment that was near work, that was affordable, and most importantly, accepted my dog. And at the time, that meant a 550 square foot box that was one bedroom and was super tiny, so we didn't have room for any of the studio stuff or anything from when we lived back in Portland. But recently, we moved. And luckily with COVID and all this other stuff going on, that means that I get to have a dedicated setup for playing and streaming Magic with my friends. So let's do a tour of that and let's get into it. Now first it might look, kind of intimidating, but it's really simple when you break it down. So let's go one by one. Also, it's a mess, I recognize that, and that's the most important part, right? So in this situation, I've got it pushed all the way up, but in various builds that I've had to slide it around and stuff, so having a big space for your playmat is a good start. And now, up to the camera. This might look intimidating, but the key three letters here is HDV. What that means is that this is actually a tape camera from 2009. It shoots HD video, it works great, but you can have these for around $300 to $500 if you're looking in the right place on eBay. So right there's my camera. The lens is fantastic, so let's zoom it in a little bit. And there's my board, perfectly cropped. And sometimes I even find myself setting a card down in the middle of the board, and people ask, hey, what does that card do? Let me get rid of this thing. People ask, hey, what does that card do? So I'll just crank in the zoom and they can read it for themselves. This is great, especially in games that aren't like streamed or something. So everyone can get on the same page without me having to read a ton of text, and they can comprehend it on their own. As well, this thing has a ton of buttons, but it's really simple to operate. You just put it into auto mode and it does just fine. So I had thought about a million different ways for how to mount this stupid thing, because it's probably 5 to 7 pounds. I don't know for sure, but I thought about tripods above the table and stuff like that. But these backdrop stands for when I did MTG Tonight were $40 for each pair, so $80 altogether. And I shoved one through the handle, and the other is resting on the mat box to just balance it out and keep it pointed where I want it pointed. Sometimes it'll jostle around, but I've got these bungee cords. If it's causing problems, you just use these mini bungee cords and get it stuck in the way that you want it stuck. What's really nice, and the reason that these cameras are so cheap, is for reference, this camera was $5,000 or something when it first came out, and I'm getting to use it for about $300. The reason that you can get it for so cheap is because this actually records to mini DV tapes. That's right. The technology that's like 30 years old, they were putting HD video onto mini DV tapes. And there is a module that lets you record to CF card readers, but nobody can use this thing apart from applications like this. Because what I'm doing is using the HDMI out and going into this iMac with a Camlink 4K. It is 1080i, so you have to figure out what the pull down is, and that's usually pretty easy. What you do is in OBS, just right click, de-interlace, and then cycle through the different options, and eventually when you find one that looks good, that's the answer. Other services like Google Hangouts, which is the one I use most frequently, they just do it automatically. Okay, so that is the tour of the video setup. Luckily I've got a battery pack in there that's connected to this adapter that came with the camera. Okay, if you know anything about audio, then this looks janky as hell. This is an MXL 990, which is just about as basic as it got a few years ago. Everybody had these things and people would modify them. If you have an AT2020, it's kind of similar to that. It's a condenser microphone that's cardioid, meaning all this stuff here, it hears that. It hears a little bit back here, but anything that's like further away is exponentially quieter. It's a microphone that requires phantom power, but luckily the camera delivers that. So the way that I've got it set up here is it's hanging on this microphone stand because I don't have the shock mount for it, and those things are, the cheap ones especially, are too finicky for me to want to deal with. So I've got that on this cheap microphone stand leaning against my table to get it at this angle. And like I said, it's janky as hell, but it's so sturdy. Like, this is not going anywhere, and it is going to communicate any taps or anything like that into the stand. But if you have it set up right, which I probably don't right now, it's going to be hanging, which is almost like its own pseudo shock mount. All right, so that is on a long XLR cable that goes through the bottom of the desk all the way up to here. And then to control the volume on that, it's just these dials over here. And this is a professional camera, or it was back in the day. So it does deliver phantom power, which this microphone needs. And that's pretty much all you need for the audio video setup. So camera, HDMI into the computer, microphone out into the camera. And the beautiful thing is there's no latency because it's the same HDMI source. The audio and the video are hooked up to the same thing. So there's no like natural delay that you have to solve. It's one input into the computer, and we love that. Okay, let's talk lighting. I've got one light. That's it. These are just for helping me see while I'm working in here. I used to use this light a little bit, and this is super cool. I don't know if it's plugged in right now. Let's see. Yeah, it is. So this thing is super cool. I haven't figured out how to integrate it into this setup because I used to have it in front right here. Maybe I'll figure it out soon. But this thing is awesome for our applications here. So what you're trying to do is get the light to be low enough that there's not going to be any glare into the camera, but high enough that your hands or your deck or any permanents or tokens that you have, like with dice and stuff, cast any shadows. So getting it at the front of the board is perfect because usually there's nothing in front of cards over there. So I'm going to be reintegrating this, but for now, since most people probably don't have something like this just laying around, let's look at cheap ass alternatives. And by the way, this was like a vanity light we just had sitting around our house forever that we haven't been able to use. Naturally, you'd expect to put the light right next to your cards, but as we could all probably figure out, that causes glare. So, and it's not in all parts of the board, but just imagine it like this light is a laser gun and it's going to shoot something. And if that bounces directly down the pipe of the camera, that's called a kick. And no matter how dim the light is, that reflection is going to cause some glare. So I move the light way over here. I'll usually secure it with bungee cords so that it's not, about to fall on my computer. But right there, look. Basically no glare at all. There's probably going to be some small part of the frame, but look at that. I'm all over the place and I've got no glare. So get yourself at a harsh angle to where this laser beam would bounce off and be nowhere near the camera, straight down the pipe. I think eventually what I'll do is probably get another one of these and put it on this side, but the whole point of this build for me was making it out of stuff that I already have. So one question I've been getting a lot recently is, hey, I'm looking at setting up my own paper magic rig, and we're thinking about streaming, and what kind of computer am I going to need to get that going? If you've got questions about your computer, try uploading some stuff to Google Drive, open a few movie files on your computer, and if it starts chugging like crazy, then you need a new rig. If it's probably fine, I would give it a shot. Give it a shot with your current rig because this stuff is a lot simpler than we think it is. Now, if you're starting to create a bunch of like complex overlays and stuff like that in OBS, rethink your rig, but let me show you what I'm using. So a few years ago, my MacBook Pro crapped out on me. I was one of many people who had this exact late 2011 MacBook Pro 15-inch where the graphics chip would like melt the solder or something. So I've gone through 4 logic boards on those. And finally Apple said, hey, we're not going to replace it anymore. You're on your own. So after 4 logic boards, I had to figure out a solution. They gave me a $100 coupon and I picked up this base model late 2017 iMac with the base specs that you can get on an Apple product for $900. And at the time, it was because of certain codecs that I needed. And when you're doing video stuff really professionally, it used to be important that you had a Mac. It isn't really anymore. But this is what I use. It's got USB 3, and that's what I need for my Camlink 4K. I boot off of an SSD. This is a Samsung T5. You can get these for around $100 depending on the capacity you want. And this is the rig that I use. This computer was just sitting in a box because I upgraded recently to a fully fledged MacBook Pro. But it's nice to see this thing getting some use, especially for something that means that I get to hang out with my friends. And then with these Shure 440s that I got many, many years ago, I plug that into the headphone jack, and I'm set to go. So that is a complete tour of my build. It's really messy right now, but I bet yours is too. Let's do a quick breakdown. $40, $40, $20, probably $60. The cord, $15. $300 to $500, but you can use any camera. $5. I'm gonna say $900 on this one because I bought it brand new and I'm trying to keep myself honest. But really, use whatever machine you have laying around. You probably have something. Just try it. If it doesn't work, fine. So what do I use for actually streaming? I don't do the streaming. I'm the one who calls in to other people's streams and I do it all there. Maybe you're willing to set up your own stream and do that stuff. But if you're working on a budget, try to find somebody else to collaborate with. See if people are hungry to have folks on their stream because you never know. I will say that the most important part of this whole thing to me has been connecting with my in real life playgroup. It hasn't been the viewers of certain streams that I'm on or something, or trying to find an audience or something like that. It's connecting with my, playgroup who I haven't been able to hang with in person in months. The programs that I use for that are Discord and GoToMeeting and other stuff like that when I'm doing streams. But my regular playgroup, we actually use Google Hangouts because when somebody speaks, the camera automatically switches to full screen of their board. And that's just what we like. If you like, 2x2 square or something, I would use Discord. But that's just the simple program that we like using that anyone can pretty much access anywhere. And that simplicity has really helped with, say we're going to meet at 8 o'clock, it's 8:15, and, somebody's having technical issues. So we switch over to another computer. We don't have to install a bunch of programs or something. You just open up the browser and it just works. So the simplest answer is quite often the best. Anyway, that is a complete tour of my rig, along with some other philosophies and stuff. And I'm sure that my magic room is going to be expanding. So I'll do more vlog style videos like this that are just simple. Turn on the iPhone and do a quick cut and post it to YouTube the next day. And I encourage you guys to do the same. I've got a bunch of editing prowess and I've got all the gear that you might need and, access to whatever magic celebs that, are interested in being on my stuff. But the best content comes from stuff that you love, just pumped into the most simple device that you can find. Just get yourself out there, break those barriers, and make simple videos about the stuff you love. All right, guys. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe on YouTube. If you love what I'm doing, let's have a conversation in the comments about what your streaming / gameplay setup is. Because Paper Magic is not going away over webcam. This is awesome. This is too convenient and too easy and amazing to have in your own house. You can sit here and smell bad, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be civilized. Okay, peace.